Today is July 24th. Happy Shark Weekends, guys. For those of you who do not partake in the viewing of Sharks all week, there's still Pirates baseball on as well. You're listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Let's go. Yins, guys. Thank you for listening to the Bridge to Buctober podcast, where we talk all about them Pittsburgh Pirates and that. My name is Josh. My Jame is Nosh. What's up, Jake?
Hey, man, what's up?
It's great. I love the great starts. Listen, I could just back this up and do it all over again and no one would ever know, but I just feel like that's not how we do things.
Yeah. I got my overhead light on too. I just realized.
That's fine. Looks fine.
It doesn't matter.
No. We were a little distracted getting started here.
Mm-hmm.
We got to watch an episode of Shark Week.
Yeah, we found out that the great white shark was the whole reason the megalodon doesn't exist anymore.
Yep, they stole all the food.
Yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah.
Hey, man, I still like Shark Week. The episode before that was kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But
it's still
the megalodon
like
stuff
Week.
is kind of almost they do one every year on the first night, and it's always like it's just I don't know, man. This was probably the least far-fetched one I've heard.
Yeah.
Like sometimes they go a little overboard with it. This one's probably the least far-fetched. It makes sense. Why did they get extinct? Yeah. Well, because what they say, it takes a lot more food to feed a giant than it does to, whatever.
Yeah.
So if you were wondering, you got night one of Shark Week figured out already. The Meg, extinct because of the great white.
Yep.
Now on to baseball. Let us know, guys. I've already seen some tweets out there, some people enjoying the Shark Week, but let us know. I'm a big Shark Week fan. Have been since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I really have been. So I get kind of excited for it. And kind of cool this week. Spoiler alert, we're playing the Padres next, which I think is kind of cool that we're West Coasting it right now during Shark Week. But also, games don't start till like almost 10 o'clock. So there's time to watch like an episode and a half of Shark Week while you're waiting for the ball game to start. Because I think they start at 8 every night. Like 8, 9, and 10 or something like that. But anyway. Let's get on to some baseball.
Yeah.
I didn't open up the transactions page because I'm on top of things. What was it that was actually done? I think that was it. It was Jose Hernandez.
Yeah.
That's it. We just did our transactions talk. Jose Hernandez was the move, as we thought he would be. And he got in a couple games here, struck out Shohei.
Yeah.
We'll talk about Shohei a little bit tonight because if you play the Angels, you can't help but talk about Shohei.
Right.
So we'll touch on that a little bit. Talk about the Angels series, offense and pitching, a little bit of both here tonight, just to kind of cover them. And then a little bit about the future Buccos. It's getting that time of year where we're starting to think about next year. So we've got a couple things to go over there, and then we'll preview what we can of the Padres series and just kind of go from there. Where do you want to start here? You want to start with offense, pitching? You want to just go right into the series and just kind of cover the games? We don't do like recaps of the games all that often. There are some moments that we may do, but we don't really do that. But I'm just kind of curious what you want to lead off with if you have a preference.
I don't really have, me. I don't have much of a preference on that stuff. I mean,
I didn't know if you were raring to go on any of these things. So anyway, let's go ahead because I'll say this: there was a couple things about the series that kind of stuck out to me that are different from like the other things that we're going to talk about. One of them was Friday. I felt like it was a very Angels type of loss on Friday, right? And I know that we like to say things like, oh, this team just pirated their way out of a win here. But like, it's different when you Angels your way into a loss. We hit 4 home runs in the game. We had a guy hit 2 home runs and we lose. You know what I mean? And that's what it's like every night you're like, oh, Shohei Ohtani had 15 strikeouts. He was 2 for 3 with a home run and a double, and the Angels lose 7-1. You know, it's like, what?
Yeah.
How in the world? And I feel like that's what happened to the Pirates on Friday. Is I felt like we put together a nice game.
Yeah.
And lost. The other thing was Bednar, and I don't know if this goes under the pitching thing, but let's go ahead and go into pitching as we talk about as we kind of start with Bednar. Bednar's Saturday was shaky, and I bring it up because when I'm watching this, I was thinking to myself, I think I tweeted it out, get him out of the game. After the second walk, he had hit by pitch, he'd walked. Now, in the midst of all this, I noticed that the 4-pitch walk really threw me off. And so I started looking some things up. And I'll admit it, I completely missed the strikeout. And I texted you because you had just gotten off work. And I said, he's got the bases loaded, no outs. And then I looked down after the double play and they were like, the game's over. And I was like, that's only oh, there was another out. So I went back and was like, okay, so walk, strikeout. Okay. The command was not there at all.
No, in the Oscar Marine trip, like what I would love to be a fly on the wall on that mound visit.
And the mound visit was it when the bases were loaded or was it after the hit by pitch? I think it was after he loaded the bases. No.
Yeah, I think it was after. I'm not sure. I just remember because they were showing like I was watching Quick Pitch or whatever, and they were showing it, and they were showing Oscar Marine out there. I didn't see this situation, but just to be a fly on the wall, like because you can imagine what has to be said to David Bednar to get him to get right. Like you just go out there and yell at him. What are you doing? Straighten up. Get us out of this. Do your job. And Bednar is probably like, yeah, let's do it.
It's so funny that was your Bednar voice.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. He threw a ball, and then he had a called strike, a swinging strike on a ball that was out of the zone, and then he threw 97 at the top of the zone again for strike 3 against Moustakas. But walking Taylor Ward on 4 pitches where one of the pitches was close.
Yeah.
Then he throws 2 way high to go 2-0 on Matt. Is it Teese? Is it Tice? Thice? I could never figure out what they were saying. But either way, then he just hits him in the foot. Like none of them were close. You're talking about 7 balls that were not even close, really. But then the Moustakas kind of in the middle of that. And then he goes to Renfroe, which was a longer at bat. He battled off some pitches there, and it was an 8-pitch at bat. He ended up losing him too. And that's when I was like, okay, what are we going to do? We got Trey Cabbage getting up, who has shown to hit the ball, hit his first homer in the series. And so it just kind of was like, really? And after that walk, I thought to myself, and I said it, I was like, I think we got to get him out of here. Like he's not anywhere near.
Yeah, you sent that message to me.
Just
to get him out.
Sometimes you got to recognize when he doesn't have it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he starts it off with 2 balls that were not even close to the zone. And I don't care if it's the middle of the at bat or not. When you're 2-0, like, I don't know. I'm a little bit indifferent on this. I would say get him out of there. But just because you're like, the game's on the line, but then at the same time, you're like, yeah, but it's Bednar. And so like in the moment, I was like, we gotta do something different. But you kind of trust your guy there. And if he gives up the hit there, do you then move on? Do you let him go? What do you do?
No, I mean you'd get him out. I mean, I'm completely against taking a guy out in the middle of an at bat unless it's an
Okay.
injury. I'm just you. If you let him start the at bat, you let him finish it.
Okay.
But yeah, that's if he gives up the hit right there, then you got to make the change
Or a walk.
or a walk.
And then you're bringing somebody in and putting them up against it. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
You'd already used a lot. Well, not really as many as you would think. Only 4 pitchers used before Bednar in an opener game.
Mm-hmm.
When Beto, who was the bulk, or I forget what Craig Brown was calling him on there, maybe bulk, which is what it really is. But the guy who's really set to go deep still only went 3 innings, which I was kind of hoping if you do an opener like that, give me 4, give me, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But either way,
well, they let Baraki go into the second inning, didn't they?
yeah, he went 1 2/3.
Yeah.
And then Beto goes 3 innings, and then Hernandez comes in after 1 out, and he goes, how does that work? No, it would have been after 2 outs. Mm-hmm. He came in to finish the inning, and then he pitched a full inning and then started the next one because he went 1 2/3. And then Majinski finished that inning, went the full 8th inning. So like they got multiple innings in a way from each of them, but would have been nice to see Beto go 1 more inning.
Yeah.
But then again, maybe not. Maybe that's why they were doing it that way. Maybe it's second time through the lineup or whatever for Beto that is a struggle, So I didn't get to hear any of their thought process on why they were going that way. I'm making assumptions because, they're pretty obvious assumptions. You know what I mean? Like these are pretty obvious things why they would do this. But as far as Beto going 3 instead of any deeper than that, I thought it was interesting. I'm just kind of looking through here. So more on the pitching there. Oviedo goes on Friday night and starts off really well. Pirates get a lead in the 4th and then 5 runs in the 4th inning. Oviedo finishes the 4th, but those 5 runs were enough. 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, gave up 2 homers in the inning. Only 3 hits, but it's another one of those Oviedo starts where there's an inning that just gets away from him and he can't get out of it.
Yeah.
And if you guys listened last week, and I don't want to rehash this too much, so don't let me go too far down this. But if you listened last week, I went on a little bit of a rampage about Rich Hill. And this is kind of Rich Hill's thing. When he gets into trouble or he gets ticked off, he stinks. And it keeps piling up on him. And we also mentioned that he was being really good for Oviedo because when he's not pitching, Oviedo's in his ear. They're always together. They're always talking. And I almost wonder, he's not going to help him here. If this is his problem, Rich Hill's not the guy to help him here because he does this. He lets it escalate on himself. And if that's Oviedo's problem, we need to figure it out from someone else, not from Rich Hill.
Right. That's funny.
But
I never really thought about it.
I hadn't either.
To be honest.
And then I was just sitting here thinking it through and everything. And I'm like, man, it's his thing, man. Whether it's the 1st inning or in this case, the 4th inning, when it starts to pile on him, it continues to. And that's one of the things that young pitchers have to figure out, especially guys that come up who have stuff, who have the ability to pitch a really good game, as we've seen Oviedo do multiple times. But it's just that whether, like I said, a lot of times it has been the 1st inning, but whether it's that 1st inning or another inning in there where he just kind of loses it, and sometimes he comes back after that. Yeah. And pitches 3-4 innings that are good when it's the 1st inning. This one's going to chase him out of the game. You know what I mean? Yeah. And he's at, I don't know, I think he was around 75 pitches or so. So it's not like he was gassed in that way, but they were on him. It's time to move on. And then Hernandez comes out and, he gets some strikeouts, but ultimately that whole thing, and it was a mess. And 3 strikeouts, but he throws 2/3 of an inning. I think that says enough. Gives up 2 home runs. I mean, you know what I mean? So first day off of the IL, it is what it is. But we'll get more into some of the offensive performances here of those games later on. Moretta looked good again, and then the rest of the game was fine. Dude, Perdomo continues to be effective. He pitched twice. He did give up the solo homer on Sunday, but outside of that, he just continues to be decently effective in his appearances. So I don't really know. But what is there to say about, well, before I do it, I mean, chronological here. We talked about Baraki and Beto and all that stuff. Kudos to that. I mean, they shut him out that night.
Yeah.
And that plan seems to work in that way, is you can't get comfortable with anybody in that scenario.
Right.
So kudos to everybody there. That's Baraki, Beto, Hernandez, who was a bounce back right there. Great bounce back outing for Hernandez. Majinski was good. Bednar. And we'll talk about Majinski in particular. I remember, I think Beto too. Just something to be said there further on as we cover some other things. But talk to me about Keller, man. I mean, this is back-to-back starts where it's been kind of an issue, and it's been back-to-back starts where for a moment he looks great. And then this was a little bit of the same thing. Angels got a couple runs early, but it really wasn't a big deal until the 5th inning. 4 runs off of him. He overall leaves after 6 runs. He only walked 1. He got a few more caught looking. Like that 2-seamer was really good. The slurve seemed to be back from his last couple, where it was looking a little like, I think you mentioned last week that it was kind of lazy or whatever. But I don't know how you said it, but that's kind of how I felt. But 9 hits, 6 runs. I don't know. What do you got here? Obviously, Ohtani takes him deep. And a couple other guys. Velasquez with his first homer. Rengifo goes twice, but one of them was off Perdomo. What do you got here?
I think he's missing spots. I think he's not locating where he wants to locate. I did see a little graphic that I think McHenry reposted it or something like that. But anyway, it was showing his cutter is actually up a tick in velocity. And I think the uptick in velocity is flattening it out a little bit. And he's using it lower in the zone. Now, I know that seems weird because you know how the old school pitching thing is like, they'll never beat you low. Just keep it low, keep it low, keep it low. Well, now we're working up in the zone. And he was keeping it up in the zone early on, and he was dominating. And now that he's working like thighs and down, he's still mixing them in high, but I think he's trying to go high and he's missing low, and they're not cutting as much, and they're flat pitches.
What was it he said on the Velasquez home run? Let me get there. What am I missing here? Oh, I'm in the wrong inning. My bad. He hits the home run it was on the sweeper. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Because he said something about, they asked him about location, and he said something about like, well, I just throw that pitch as hard as I can. And it almost was like, I don't locate that pitch. I literally just throw it as hard as I can and let it take care of it wherever it is. But then he says that he doesn't like the location that it was at. Maybe it wasn't the Velasquez home run. Maybe it was a different one. But either way, it's like, I don't know if I misunderstood that. Like, that doesn't seem like
That seems like a Mitch Keller answer, though.
It does. That's a good point. That's interesting. I just throw it as hard as I can. Be like,
I don't know what I'm doing wrong.
And you know what? That was the thing is, he said, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. We got to figure that out. And I'm like, oh, I remember talking about that. We were like, you have to know what's going wrong. Like, how do you not know? So I think he was a little more, he did mention that his stuff was good, which I was noticing early on that I thought that the same thing. And of course, if you're listening to Matt Capps call the game, every home run we give up was a great pitch. Like, come on, man. They're not all great pitches. Sometimes you miss spots.
So here's the quote. And it's, my mentality is to throw it hard and let the spin take care of it. It's not exactly where I wanted, but it was in a pretty good spot, and he put a good swing on it.
And it was on the, and it is, was it the Velasquez? Was it the sweeper?
I think that's what they're talking about.
Okay.
Right now. Yeah.
It was on the edge of the zone. And so it wasn't in a bad spot. It's high though. And I don't know that you want it, that far up in the zone. So that's what I guess that kind of echoes what he's saying is, it's not really in a great spot, but it's not in a really bad spot either. Like, it wasn't out over the middle. It might have been up, but it wasn't out over the middle. I'm sorry. A guy hits a home run. There's the quote where they say home runs are thrown, not hit. There's some disagreement from my side here. I mean, if you don't put a good swing on it, I don't know that you're necessarily going to hit it out. Unless you're like Giancarlo Stanton. There's very few guys. Aaron Judge, like the really beefy guys.
Mm-hmm.
Probably Pete Alonso. You know what I mean? Those guys with like massive strength. Andrew Velasquez is not a big guy. He hits one over the fence. He put a good swing on it.
Well, who was it? I just seen hit a home run. Bregman. Bregman just hit a home run the other day. He didn't even full swing. Like, it was not a good swing. Just launched
in the Crawford boxes, or it was bomb?
No. It was. I think they were away. They were on the road. Can't remember where they were, but still.
So maybe a bad take. Maybe you can hit home runs without good swings. It seems like that's what you're saying. I'll take it. Like, that's fair.
You can. I'll take it. But it's not normal. Obviously.
I kind of always, because Bregman's not huge.
No, he's not.
So that defeats everything I just said. I'll take it. That's fair. I just feel like, it's not like they're using slow pitch softball bats that are hot and you can just barely swing and get it through the infield. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Maybe
the Rengifo home run right after the Velasquez one, he also says, it was just a changeup. I was trying to get ahead.
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't trying to make a perfect pitch. He was just trying to throw the ball over the plate. He threw a changeup, which I'm a big changeup guy. We all know this. I love the changeup. Not sure it's an 0-0 pitch. Very rarely.
Yeah. And I think sometimes with Keller, they're looking off speed for that very reason.
Mm-hmm.
I'll let him throw the fastball by me on an 0-0 pitch, but he throws me that soft stuff first pitch, I'm swinging.
Yeah.
I don't know. Either way, ERA now 4.01. Jake, this is no longer. Dude, at one point we talked about Cy Young votes.
Yeah.
And now it feels ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
At this point in the season, you're not getting back into that discussion.
No.
But he can still save his season a little bit.
Yeah.
Just got to see it happen.
It wasn't just us. You had guys on MLB. You had, what's his face? On MLB Network talking about him.
Well, that's actually what I mean, right? Because I don't think I would have even brought it up in the moment, like when we were talking about it, other than the fact that he was getting that kind of recognition. So I'm trying to think here. 4-1. So he was at one point, you're talking 7-1, 8-2, 8-3, 9-3 after June, 0-3 this month. He's now 9-6, but like 7-1. Did I say 7-1? He's 9-6. It's just not pretty.
Right.
2.90 ERA in April, 3 in May, 3.56 in June, 7.04 in his 4 starts so far in July. July can't end soon enough for Mitch Keller, and I imagine he's going to have another start in July, but not good. He had one good outing though. I mean, there was against Arizona. There was a 7-inning outing that he went 1 hit, but 4 earned runs against the Dodgers, 8 against Cleveland, and 6 against LA. That's 3 out of 4 of his last starts that just haven't been sharp.
Right.
So Mitch Keller's something to watch for right now. Without Mitch Keller, I'm starting to be a little bit concerned even more about the state of our pitching. We've got Priester going in this next game. We don't know who else. I mean, I would assume the two, Rich Hill and help me out here. I'm going to blank that bad on it.
Yeah. I mean, yes.
This is how it goes.
I love when this happens.
You do. It was probably going to be Oviedo again, actually. It's probably going to be Oviedo again. And I was like, it has to be somebody who just pitched, so it's probably going to be Oviedo.
Yeah.
Fun. We literally just talked about him for a while. And that's against San Diego. And obviously, San Diego, we've talked at length about San Diego. And they're still just kind of in the same place, but we'll see. They score a lot of runs. If the starting pitching isn't there, you're not going to be able to beat a team like that. But we'll talk about them in a little bit. How about the offense? Or how about let's go to this. Let's kick off the offense by talking about Shohei. We said we were going to talk about Shohei Ohtani. Let's talk a little bit about Shohei. We can start with the pitching. 1 for 8 Ohtani was in this series with 6 strikeouts. He didn't get a hit in the first 2 games. He gets the solo homer off Keller, and that's it. There's a few walks sprinkled in there, but we don't need to talk about that. It's a Pirates podcast. We held him to 1 for 8 with 6 strikeouts.
Yeah.
And he pitches in the first game. And we said we would come back to this. Ohtani goes 6 1/3, gives up 5 runs. He does strike out 9, but come on, he's pitching against the Pirates. But we hit 4 home runs off of him in this game, including 2 by Henry Davis. It's been everywhere that you could look, except for in the national media, that's the most home runs he's ever given up in a single game. And Henry Davis becomes the first player to take him deep twice in the same game. Nobody's talking about that. If you look at Ohtani news on MLB, you mostly just see that he hit a home run off Mitch Keller because narrative. But, boy, if you don't watch baseball and you just watch the Pirates, you're thinking, what's the stink about this guy? What's the deal here?
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think? That's that 350 I talked about last week is now a 371.
Yeah, and he's going through a little scuffle himself. He hasn't been as sharp in his last X amount of outings. I don't know what it is. I don't dig deep into him, but and we took advantage of it. And I love
more than anybody has.
Yes, and I love the fact that Henry Davis comes up here and he gets 2 off of him. The first one he gets him, he pull side. The next one he goes right center.
Yeah.
Love it. Shohei made an adjustment, and so did Davis.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a great sign. And then to just go ahead and get out of Shohei and go into this offense. He had the double on Sunday as well, where he goes to the right side, off the wall. Thought off the bat it had a chance. But Henry Davis stinging it well, showing up, big moments. I mean, you're facing Ohtani, it's a big moment. Actually, one more thing about Ohtani there and our pitching is I was talking about the game, the Beto game with Majinski and everything, the game that we won. And you saw some, and they talked about it a lot on the broadcast. the hardest pitches our pitchers threw were when Ohtani was in the box. Majinski pumping 98 in the, to Ohtani when he didn't hit 98 any other time in that outing that I saw. And they certainly leaned into it, right? So if they saw it, they weren't going to mention it because they were trying to make a point. But that goes to show that there's a guy there that kind of gets the best out of you.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe some guys it doesn't, because obviously he got the best out of us and we shut him down. But his home run was home run number 36. So maybe there's, some guys saying, he's not that good. And then it's like, oh, wait, yeah, he is. Yeah. Where our guys gave him the respect and went a little extra on him. You know what I mean? Still just doesn't make sense to me Trout was on the injured list. We totally missed him. But imagining those two back to back, knowing that I have to do that and then I have to do that again, you're going to shorten your outings or you're going to make more mistakes to one of them.
Right.
I cannot believe they don't win more games. I just cannot believe it. It just blows my mind, especially because now they look pretty well-rounded.
Yeah.
With Moniak actually playing well, and Ward's home run was his 12th. And, they've got some good players there now.
Yeah.
That kind of surround them. I don't really know. But this Cabbage dude looks, like he could do, he looks like he could do some damage. I don't know, what their deal is with him and if this is a new exciting thing for them, but kudos to you for having a first baseman. Boy, we'll talk about that later maybe. Anyway, the offense, Brian Reynolds for 5 hits in the series. And in the last 4 games, they've scored 5 runs in 3 of them. And the one that they didn't, they won. Now they're 2-2 in those games, but they win a 3-0 game, but then score 5 runs. Now, so the problem obviously is you can't lose those 2 games that you score 5 runs.
Right.
But at the same time, like we talked last week about Reynolds and production needing to happen, and you can kind of see that he's starting to feel it a little bit. He hit the home run on Sunday, but even without that, when you're hitting it good, you will find your way into some light hitting hits as well.
Yeah.
When you're not hitting it consistently good, those light hitting hits go right at people and you don't always get the hits on them. So I think that's a good sign for Reynolds. Hopefully he can start kind of turning some things around there.
Yeah.
Anybody else? Peguero's in the hit column. Anybody else? I know you kind of said, is the offense turning a corner though? And what was your first question to
that? My first question is, what were we with runners in scoring position?
And that's a great point, because we ask, is the offense, not just is Brian Reynolds turning a corner, is Henry Davis looking good, but is the offense turning a corner? 0 for 4 in the first game. I'll give you a pass on that game. You had 4 home runs. 0 for 4. You had 4. I'll give you a pass on that one. 2 for 7, 1 for 10. So not great with runners in scoring position. No. Still a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I think it was we hit them, but we couldn't outscore them. So
right. Yeah, Friday out hit them 8-6. In the 3-0 win, we out hit them 7-5, and then both teams had 10 hits in the last game. So you're out hitting a team and you're not able to bring them in. Now, they were 3 for 7 in the final game with runners in scoring position. Other than that, they didn't have that great either. They had 1 hit each time, or each day, 2 days before that. So it's not like they were all that much better with runners in scoring position, but for whatever reason.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I would say, well, but we gave up a couple runs that we probably shouldn't have. But at the same time, the catcher throws the ball back to the pitcher and he's lazy going after it today, and Peguero takes home. So we got to run off them that we shouldn't have probably gotten either, just from them, maybe like a play that you would really like to have back. You know what I mean? And so, those sort of things are going to happen. They're frustrating when they do, but I mean, it's a long season. Trust me, things like that are going to happen to good teams and bad teams alike. So, Other than that, I don't know. I don't know if they're turning a corner yet. The runners in scoring position is still a thing, but it's a maybe. I mean, one of the problems with this team is we stopped hitting home runs. Can you say anything about that? I mean, we hit home runs. You know what I mean? Every one of these games, we hit home runs, or a home run at least. You know what I mean? You had Reynolds and then Andy Rodriguez. Hey, Andy Rodriguez. First home run. Good thing I thought of that there for a second. But he hit the home run on Saturday, and then obviously 4 home runs. But, I mean, there was a while where we're like, no, we don't average a home run a game, it felt like. You know what I mean? And I don't know that we're there, but it's nice to see him with a little bit of power there.
Yeah. So like turning a corner, just to kind of full circle this thing around.
Yeah.
Turning a corner, I would say it's definitely trending upward. I mean, we're hitting the ball again. You know, let's just try coming through in the big spots and getting the runners in, linking those hits together.
Yeah, that's the big thing. Getting hits together in the same inning.
Yeah.
Piling on. That's the next step. I haven't looked up the data on whether we're taking pitches as much. I haven't looked this stuff up. I assume, I mean, I'm still watching them. I mean, Jack struck out looking again today. And so, I mean, I know
it's in the 9th too, wasn't it?
Yeah. And it's a borderline pitch. We talk about this all the time. Those borderline pitches with 2 strikes, man, you've got to offer.
Yeah.
You've got to offer at those. You can't be afraid to chase. And I think that when that chase rate is so good, sometimes maybe you could use a little bit of chase, meaning that you're trying to protect. And if you miss something that's just off the edge, man, at this point, for Pirate fans, I think that would be like, it's all right. At least you swung. I think because if we start complaining about swinging at pitches out of the zone, then we're just never happy.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like right now, our problem is taking specifically strike 3. If we start swinging at balls that are just off the edge, like, hey, life isn't perfect, man. Like we're going to have to figure out how those borderline pitches, we're either okay with them taking them or we're okay with them chasing them. You can't have both.
Every once in a while, you're allowed to say, hey, that was a good pitch. Well played.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, just not as often as Matt Capps. Everything's a good pitch to the old pitcher. Come on, Capper. Whatever. Okay, so let's move into something different here because we've had some conversations and we're all frustrated. Jason Mackey put out the tweet today. Pirates are 23-48 since starting 20-8. And every week somebody tweets this out and reminds us what their winning percentage is. And it's a .324 winning percentage since then. That's awful.
That's really bad. That's really bad.
Talent-wise, this team shouldn't be that bad.
Right.
We know that. We know they're playing bad on top of things, right? We get that. Or else we wouldn't be rooting for them to do better. We would just say, this is what it is. Which some Pirate fans, as oblivious as they are, they do say that. But he also mentions that there are 63 games left. If they continue at .324, they will go 20-43 in those games, and they will be 63-99. One game better than last year he finishes. So the thing is like, first off, .324 is, to me, I don't think that that's what's going to continue to happen. At some point, even if it's just for a month, for half a month, you start to win a few games, you get into one little 7-game win streak or something like that. I'm not sure if that's in there or not. You just never know. It was in there for the A's, and they're way worse. So it can happen.
Yeah.
Throw in one streak like that, and .324 won't happen.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And you get O'Neal Cruz back. You start getting these guys that are in the game right now some seasoning, some experience. And hopefully, if pitching can go on some sort of run where they improve a little bit, it's just not likely to continue. But if it does, we're still, you still might avoid. I mean, like, even if it's 95 losses, that's not much better, right?
Right.
So even if it does continue at this rate and it's 95 losses, first off, do you think, I mean, it sounds like you're definitely thinking it's not going to happen. Last week you said they won't finish last.
Right.
So if they have 99 losses, they're in last place.
I agree with that statement.
I think if they have 95 losses, they're in last place. Because the Cubs aren't stopping yet.
Right.
The Reds just ran 5 straight off after they started slumping. And now they've got Milwaukee to go. They're right in the thick of this thing.
Right.
They're not giving up. So with that said, this is year 4 of a rebuild. We said at the beginning of the year, we had our thoughts of how good we thought they were going to be. Right?
Yep.
They may not get to that point. That's 10 games different than what I picked. What he just said is 10 games different. I'm not sure my prediction is safe anymore.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And when you go in these big, long streaks like this, that's what happens.
Mm-hmm.
You underperform. But what is underperforming? I mean, I picked them to lose almost 90 games. You know what I mean? Like, what do I expect from this team? We all knew that this was a growth year. We all knew it. Mm-hmm. This is in the cards. Go back and listen. Oh, shoot. If I actually knew what episode it was, you'd be listening to a bunch of things. Actually, I would like that. I'm just kidding. Go back and listen. Like, remember back, if you were listening to us at the beginning of the year, I did a big breakdown of rebuilds and who's done rebuilds that are similar to what we've seen. None of them were winning in year 4. That's unrealistic in this type of a rebuild, a complete blow up. It's unrealistic. Now, it can happen. Don't get me wrong. I believe it can happen. Sometimes those teams that are early, they regress the year after. But either way, the two that we really kind of pointed out were Houston, because they've had such a lot of success after that, cheating or not. They've had great players, right? And they sustained that for a long time. They went through 4 years, 3 straight 100 loss seasons and a 92 loss season before turning it around. They weren't in the playoffs the next year. They were above 500 though. And you could tell there was a clear turnaround as they continued. And then I believe they were in the World Series the very next year. We're looking now at Baltimore. And they were the other example that we used. And we said year 4, Baltimore had 110 losses in year 4 of their rebuild. And then they turned it around. They were over 500 and they missed the playoffs. And then this year, they're in first place in that division. I will check here to see if they are still in first place. They are. They're actually 2 games in first place right now over Tampa Bay and the start that they had.
Yeah.
Same amount of wins, but 4 less losses, which is the one that really matters.
Right.
And you're talking, this is Baltimore. So that means in the year 2025, if everything continues to go the way it is for Baltimore, we're right there.
Yeah.
Now, it's not that easy, right? You still have to execute. So you can have your doubts on whether or not they're going to execute next year and the year after that. But next year, we should hold this team to the standard that a lot of fans are already trying to hold them to. And I think that it's probably just a year early. I think it's realistic to say it's just a year early.
Yeah. Yeah. And to go backwards a little bit, when you were talking about is when you go on runs like this, and are they playing worse than the talent that's on the team, all that kind of stuff. When you were talking about that, all I could think in my head was the start of the year that the Cardinals had. There's no reason they should have been they should have had a record like that. There's way too much talent on that team. It happens. It happens to good players. It happens to great players. It happens to bad players. It happens to all players. It happens to all teams. Not every year is it going to happen to all teams, but things like this happen to even teams that have good players on their team.
St. Louis is still on that pace. They're still,
but they're playing better now.
Not right now. I mean, they just lost 3. They're only a game. They're only a half game different than us.
Right, but they had a lot of catching
but they
up
didn't
to do.
start to a 20-8. You're right. They had a lot of catching up to do.
There was the opposite.
Yeah, and they're 6-4 in their last 10, but their problem is pitching, right? And so they're in 4th place, but they should be in 4th place. The Cubs are the team that's kind of the weird team in the division right now because they're scoring way more runs than they're giving up. Yeah. I mean, they have a plus 41 and they have a losing record. It just doesn't make sense. That. Everyone else in the division is on the bottom side of that. Yeah. And we've talked about these central divisions. I mean, Minnesota's in first place over there on the other side. They're plus 43. They're in first place. That makes sense. Everybody else is not.
Right.
So Kansas City is negative 169. Oakland is negative 258. Imagine being that.
Yeah.
We're just at a negative 74, man. We're chilling. I mean, we're not even Colorado at this point.
Right. But it just goes to show you that sometimes the wins don't fall into place and the losses can compile. And it sucks.
San Diego and New York Mets are probably the big examples right now. I mean, they're loaded with talent. They're not playing well. And it's a completely different situation, but the idea is you have to play the games. And when you're a young team, sometimes it can just catch fire and go. Look at the Cincinnati Reds. Other times, man, it can just pile up on you. And that's what's happened to the Pirates right now. And it's not an excuse.
No.
They're playing bad.
Right.
But it's like it's not unheard of. This isn't crazy that it's happening. I think it's been longer than I thought, and that's the big thing for me is that they've got to figure out a way to right the ship. And you know what? I had some conversations with some people specifically after my rant, and the piece that you don't notice out of this, and I alluded to it, but I didn't go into it. But like, what is Derek Shelton doing right now? What is he doing to change the culture in that clubhouse? What is he doing to hold people accountable?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like somebody said, Derek Shelton isn't yelling at the players, so Rich Hill's taking it upon himself to do it. First off, not your job, Rich Hill.
Right.
But also, it is your job, Derek Shelton, that if there is something, it's just, I just don't know what's going on there. And that's my biggest question, and that's been our biggest question, is not like directly related to that, but you and I have talked a few times about why aren't you going out there and standing up for your players?
Right.
What is this? Why are we so passive about everything?
And it was weird because when we were playing well, he seemed to do it a little bit.
But barely. It was like barely. 1 or 2 times.
Yeah. And when he did it, we made sure we said something about it. Like it was good to see. Like go out and fight for your guys. But when we're playing bad, it seems like he's just like meh.
Yeah, there has to be something there for me. He's got the extension. He's not going anywhere.
Right.
They'll put it on someone else. It'll be on Andy Haynes or whatever. It won't be on Derek Shelton. And I'm not even I'm not all the way there right now. I know there's a lot of Derek Shelton haters. Obviously you lose a bunch of games, you're going to hate the manager. That makes sense. I'm not quite there. But that makes sense. That's like a really loud noise. Okay. But you know what I mean? Like for me, squirrel.
You can't kill it.
Anyway, I question where that is and why we're not seeing something from Derek Shelton, because that's going to change this. We don't have a lot more time. But let me ask you this question. because I know we planned on maybe going deeper into this, maybe not, seeing where the conversation goes. But over the course of this quote unquote rebuild, we've said things like, guys, we won't see this roster there when we're winning. We said this about the time that even Diego Castillo, we were pulling for Diego Castillo to play, but we still knew Diego Castillo could have been, but was not likely in the plans, right?
Right.
And why did we point to that other than to say, yeah, but there's this guy, Nick Gonzalez, who we think could be, well, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
You look around this team right now, and the reason we've said that people aren't part of the future is because we assumed that you'd have some of Nick Gonzalez, Henry Davis, Andy Rodriguez, Leo Peguero, Tucupita Marcano, Rodolfo Castro, O'Neal Cruz. I don't even know if we were talking about Jack Swinski until Jack Swinski came up, but Cal Mitchell, Kanan Smith, Travis Swaggerty, right? And this is what we talked about. You have to have a bunch because, some will drop off, some will stick, and you question whether or not this guy will stick this time. And that's the kind of like Diego Castillo conversation we had. Does this guy stick? At the beginning, we liked what we saw from him. Now it quickly faded, and we were like, yeah, maybe not. And I didn't mention G1 Bay there. That's trying to be fair to everybody. But now all of a sudden, I'll raise my hand and I said, I don't know about Triolo. I'm not buying in. It's been better than what I would have thought. Mm-hmm. So of this group, we're still saying the same things. Let's be consistent. If Nick Gonzalez sticks. Mm-hmm. But these are the kind of guys that we've said, no, we think that these guys have a better chance to do it than, say, I'm picking on Diego Castillo right now, but it's just the first guy that came to my mind. He plays the same position as Nick Gonzalez for the most part. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're not talking about the Van Meters. Like, we knew they were never. We knew Yoshi was never a part of anything. We can say the same thing about Santana and Choi right now. Mm-hmm. They've never been considered part of this. They were leaders to help these young guys navigate through exactly what they're going through right now.
Yeah.
So we'll do this quickly. I'm looking at the time. We'll do this quickly. Next year, you have to see growth, but what do you see around this field? I'm going to leave first base open. We don't know. Straight up, we have no idea about first base. It has to be a free agent. I don't think that Mason Martin is going to all of a sudden come from AA and just shoot straight up and say, I'm going to Jack Sawinski this thing. I just don't see it yet.
Right.
Right. You know what I mean? And any of these guys could get better at any moment. But like Nunez, the same thing. Like, I'm just not seeing it. He's been hurt a bit. What do you do? I don't know. Do you just call up Mason Martin? If you trade away some of these guys and just say, hey, have at it, man. Let's see what we got.
That'd be interesting.
And then just let him go if it doesn't work. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And say, like, on. Here's the thing. If we're ready to move on from him and we're going to trade away Santana and or Choi, what would happen if you just said, hey, watch this. Mason Martin, put up or shut up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That would be interesting. But either way, I just wasted that time.
That's all right.
Nick Gonzalez is second base. Or who, right? But like, is this a guy that you think is part of a team that could be good?
Yeah, I do. I mean,
okay. Well, let's just, quickly, right? Like, we're not going to go deep. So guys, listen, there's going to be some confidence in what we say, and there's going to be some conditional things. Like, we know that any of these guys could not work out.
Right.
But O'Neal Cruz, I think that's a pretty easy one.
Right. Yeah.
Key Bryan.
Yeah. I mean,
the contract alone, right? But
right.
So then how about some of these backups? Like, who do you think sticks around? Like Triolo. I think that's a good one. I think I'm in right now.
Yeah.
Peguero, maybe too early to say. I mean, that's kind of unfair. Mm-hmm. Bay or Castro, maybe one of them.
One of them.
One of them. I'm the same boat. One of them.
I'm thinking more on the base side just because he can go to the outfield as well.
Okay. And I think I would lean Castro. If he can figure it out, I think there's a better upside for a part-time player from Castro than Bay. But like I said, that could teeter-totter. That could flip-flop. And then obviously Brian Reynolds. Is Jack Sawinski a guy, or is he like a bridge player again?
I mean, that to me, that's the tough one. I think the power's there, so I like to say yes.
If he could hit 6 or 7 in your lineup, dude, or even 5th, really.
I like 5 or 6, to be honest.
He's done his best work in the 5s hole, so how about Andrew McCutchen? I mean, you're talking about he's got to play 2 more years to get to this place. I mean, they'll be fun next year if things go right, but if he's trying to win a ring, like he's not going to have a shot. I mean, I say he's not going to have a shot. I'm guessing he's not going to have a shot next year.
Right.
You're talking 2 more years. I don't know. When does Henry Davis play his way there? We don't have a center fielder. We don't have a first baseman. And there's a lot of holes in pitching. That's what I would say.
Yeah.
When you say that, though, you're not that far.
No.
All you need now is growth.
Yeah.
And I've seen comments about there's nobody here. We didn't spend enough money. We got to bring up all these young guys. I think that's the point. The young guys, these specific young guys are the guys that should make this thing turn around. That's what happened in Houston. That's what happened in Baltimore. That's what happens in all of these rebuilds is like, that's what you've planned and built. Yep. So I don't think this is a give up moment. This is still exactly what it was at the beginning of the year. Had we not gone 20-8 in April, these conversations wouldn't even be happening.
Right.
It gave us all false hope that this was a competitive team this year. And I'm not trying to dog them right now. It's just not. It could have been magical, but it would have been magical.
Right, exactly.
You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't have been like, well, yeah, they're just good. And it's like, well, that was unexpected. You know what I'm saying? The 20-8, if they would have continued, not even at that pace, but if they were in the mix right now, that's considered unexpected. What the Reds are doing right now is unexpected.
Yeah, for sure.
Not that we didn't see them being good next year, but it's unexpected, especially with the 3 young pitchers being out.
Right.
All right, so Padres are still in 4th place. They're still playing like 500-ish ball in the recent games. I don't really know that there's a whole lot to love about the San Diego Padres. I think they're out of it. I think they've blown themselves out of it. They're only 10 games back in the division, but they're behind the Dodgers in Arizona. I don't think San Francisco, who's tied with Arizona right now, I don't think they finished there. Maybe they do. I see Arizona maybe splitting, maybe not, maybe because they're young. Dodgers will win the division.
Yeah.
They just will. But I don't know. San Diego, 3 games, Monday through Wednesday, a couple 9:30, 9:40 games or whatever, and then they have the day game on Wednesday. Day-ish game on Wednesday. I think it's a 4:10 game Eastern. So not really a work day game. I like the work day games myself. I know a lot of people don't, but like I have this, work from home job, so I can throw it up on one screen and just have the game on while I'm working, and it's good background music. But I don't know, man. We're gonna have some answers to some questions. They got Yu Darvish, Blake Snell, and Seth Lugo. So it's kind of all over the place. As far as the offense goes, sorry, I kind of leaned into that without clarifying. But as far as the offense goes, we'll see if turning a corner is what just happened, or if they were just playing against the Angels. I don't know. But that's all I got, man.
Hopefully we at least take one. Just don't get swept. That's where I'm at.
Yeah. Eventually we need to win a series.
Right.
Okay. Okay. It was like you said right that you were going to say something else too, but
I'm just looking at their pictures and I'm just like, right, maybe not this one.
Fair enough. Hey guys, if you enjoy some Shark Week, let me know about it. I'll be watching when I can. But happy Shark Week, everybody. Let's go Bucks.
Let's go Bucks.
Thanks for listening to my dad and Uncle Jake on the Bridge to Buctober podcast. Follow them on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Bridge2Buctober. Don't forget to subscribe so you know when new episodes are released. Clear the deck, cannonball coming, and let's go Bucks.